My girlfriend said she doesn't love me. She's just afraid of a family. I don't actually love you, Priya said, stirring her coffee like she was commenting on the weather. I just hate being alone. I didn't flinch. I didn't blink. I set down my fork and said, I know. She had used my credit card 43 times in the last 6 months and never once asked if I was okay. My name is Arjun, 29 years old. Priya and I had been together for 2 years, for months, and 11 days. Not because I counted out of devotion, but because I eventually needed to count for practical reasons. We met at a mutual friend's wedding in Pune, which should have been a sign. Weddings are the worst places to make real decisions about people. Everyone is dressed better than they actually are. We lived in Bangalore. She had moved into my apartment 8 months in, which felt like a natural step at the time. In retrospect, it was more like a tide coming in, gradual, quiet, and suddenly you're underwater. She worked in marketing. She was good at presentation. She knew how to make things look exactly the way she wanted them to look, and I mistook that skill for depth. The first time something felt wrong, we were at her colleague's birthday dinner. There were maybe 12 people around the table, all her friends. All people who regarded me as a pleasant accessory to Priya's life. I had made a point about something, urban infrastructure policy, something I actually knew well from my work as a civil engineer, and she laughed. Not with me, at me. She touched her friend Mira's arm and said, he gets so serious about these things. It's a little embarrassing, honestly. The table moved on. I took a sip of water. My jaw was very tight. I said nothing. She never called things painful. That word wasn't in her vocabulary. She called things embarrassing. She called things humiliating. As if the worst possible outcome in any situation was that someone in the room would think less of her. The second time, we were shopping for her cousin's wedding gift. I suggested something practical, a good set of cookware. She looked at me with an expression I can only describe as patient disappointment, the kind a teacher gives a slow student, and said, everyone thinks couples who give boring gifts have boring relationships. I asked her what everyone thought about couples where one person speaks for both without asking. She didn't answer. She bought an expensive decorative vase that the cousin probably returned. The third time was a Tuesday in February. She came home annoyed about something at work, and within 4 minutes of walking through the door, she said, you always make me feel like I'm too much. I was sitting at the kitchen table with my laptop open, reviewing drainage plans for a municipal project. I hadn't spoken a word since she arrived. I looked at her. I looked back at my screen. I typed one line of notes. She hated that. My silence always disturbed her far more than any argument could. The breaking point was her office party. Late March. A rooftop venue in Indiranagar, the kind of place with Edison bulbs and overpriced cocktails and everyone checking to see who noticed them. Priya had spent 2 hours getting ready. She looked extraordinary, and she knew it. I wore a clean white shirt and dark trousers. I looked fine. Fine, apparently, was the problem. Midway through the evening, her manager, a man named Vikram who told the same 3 anecdotes on rotation, made a joke about engineers having no personality. The table laughed. Priya laughed. Then she looked at me and said, with a smile still on her face, he's working on it. It's a little humiliating sometimes, but you know, nobody's perfect. She patted my hand when she said it, like I was a project she was tolerating. I removed my hand from under hers. I picked up my drink. I said, quietly, so that only she could hear, you should stop introducing me to people you're embarrassed by. She blinked. Then she laughed again, louder, and said, see? This is what I mean. You always do this. She turned back to Vikram and continued the conversation. I stood there for another 40 seconds. Then I walked to the bar, set my glass down, and went outside. I called a cab. I rode home in silence with the window down. That was Saturday night. I spent Sunday doing nothing unusual. I went to the gym. I ate lunch. I reviewed a project file. I watched the ceiling for 40 minutes before I understood that I had already made a decision. I just needed to give it shape. At 11:47 p.m. on Sunday, I opened my banking app and removed Priya from my shared account. I didn't freeze it. I simply removed her access. Quiet, clean, irrevocable. At 12:15 a.m. on Monday, I called my office HR and requested an internal transfer I'd been considering for 3 months, a 6-month assignment in Hyderabad that I had been turning down because Priya didn't want to do long distance. I confirmed my acceptance. They were pleased. At 1:30 a.m., I booked temporary accommodation in Hyderabad, a furnished studio near the office. 1 month, renewable. At 3 a.m., I packed a single bag with what I needed for 2 weeks. I left everything else exactly where it was. I looked at the apartment, her cardigan on the chair, her moisturizer on the bathroom shelf, a half-eaten packet of her crackers on the counter. I left it all. I left her a spare key on the kitchen table. Nothing else. I was in a cab to the airport by 4:20 a.m. My flight landed at 6:15 a.m. I had breakfast alone at the airport. The coffee was mediocre. I didn't mind. Her first message came at 9:03 a.m. when she woke up and found the apartment empty. "Where are you?" Not a question, a demand. I didn't reply. At 9:47 a.m., this is so typical. You always run away when things get hard. Everyone could see this coming. You're unbelievable. At 10:12 a.m., fine. Don't answer. That's so embarrassing, Arjun. Genuinely embarrassing behavior. I was in a project briefing by then. I put my phone face down on the table. Phase 2 started at 2:30 p.m. My card was declined at lunch. "What did you do?" "Arjun, I need money for groceries." "This is not funny. I have a dinner tonight with colleagues. I can't show up without being able to pay for anything. Do you know how humiliating that is?" I read all of these at 4 p.m. I transferred enough money to a separate account she could access for 2 weeks, calculated to cover her actual expenses, not her performance expenses. I sent her the account details and one line. "This will cover necessities for the next 14 days. Please make arrangements." I put the phone back down. At 7:18 p.m., she called. I let it ring twice. Then I answered. "Where are you?" Still not a question. "Hyderabad." "What? Why? What is this? Are you breaking up with me over a party? Are you serious right now?" I accepted the transfer. "What transfer? You never told me about a transfer." "I told you 3 times. In November. In January. Last month. That is not. I don't remember that. You always spring things on me and then act like I'm the unreasonable one. Everyone thinks you're so calm and reasonable, and they don't see how you just do things without considering how humiliating it is for me." "Priya." "What?" "I'm going to hang up now." "Don't you dare." I hung up. 17 missed calls over the next 2 hours. I didn't answer any of them. Her friend Mira called at 9:45 p.m. Mira, who had laughed at the dinner table in February. I answered. "Arjun, listen, I think you should just come back and talk to her. She's really upset. I think you're being a little extreme." "Mira," I said, "would you stay with someone who told you they don't love you and only need you because they're afraid of being alone?" A pause. "She said that. Tonight. In a coffee shop. She was stirring her coffee." Another pause. "I'm sorry," Mira said, and she sounded like she meant it. "Thank you for calling," I said, and I hung up. The phase 3 messages came after midnight. I know I said something stupid. I was being honest. Doesn't that count for anything? "I do love you, I just don't know how to say it right. Arjun, please. I'm scared. I can't be alone. You know that about me. You always knew that. Please come back. I need you." I read all of them at 2:17 a.m. Something in my chest went very still. Not empty. Still. The way a room goes quiet after a long noise stops. She called again at 2:33 a.m. I answered this time. Because she deserved one honest conversation. "Arjun, I need you." Her voice was different. The performance was gone. She sounded very young. "I know you do," I said. "So come back. Needing someone and loving them isn't the same thing. You know that." A long silence. Then, "I do care about you. I believe you." "Then why?" "Because care isn't enough to build a life on," I said. "And you know that too." She started to say something. I waited. She didn't finish it. "You deserve someone who doesn't need you," I said. "You deserve someone who wants you. And so do I." She was quiet for a very long time. Then she said, softly, "I don't know if I know how to do that." And I said, "I know." I said it without cruelty, without satisfaction. I just said it the way you acknowledge a fact that has finally been spoken out loud after too long underground. I hung up. I arranged for her to collect her things on a Thursday afternoon when I knew I'd be in a site meeting. I texted her the time. I told her the spare key would let her in. I told her she could take anything she needed and leave the key on the counter when she was done. She collected her things on that Thursday. When I returned to the apartment 2 weeks later to gather more of my own belongings, the apartment was mostly bare. She had taken what was hers. She had taken the throw blanket we'd bought together, which was fair. She had taken the small print of a Bangalore street scene we'd picked up at a Sunday market, which I didn't mind. She had left her cardigan, still draped over the back of the chair. Whether it was deliberate or forgotten, I never asked. I took it with me when I left. I don't know why. Some things don't need explanations. What I know now is this. Some people hold on to others the way they hold on to a wall in a dark room. Not because they love the wall, but because the dark is frightening. That isn't cruelty. It's just a kind of incompleteness. The mistake is staying in the dark with them and calling it love. Priya didn't destroy anything in me. She just revealed where I had already been slowly disappearing. In small laughs at my expense, in corrections at dinner tables, in being described as a little embarrassing by the person who was supposed to be on my side. When someone shows you who you are to them, believe them the first time, not the fourth. The hardest thing about leaving wasn't the leaving. It was realizing that for a long time, I had been grateful for something that was only just above nothing. Here is the question I want to leave you with, because it kept me awake for many nights afterward. If the person who loves you is afraid to be alone, and you stay knowing that, are you loving them? Or are you just afraid of something too? And if both of you are only staying because of fear, what are you actually building? And who are you building it for?